Hello, this is Mr. Kashmir, and this is Unit 3, Lecture G. This is the lecture for Course Reader G, which is about documentary theater. Here's your big idea. Documentary theater uses pre-existing material as the source for the creation of a script. In other words, what documentary theater is it's theater that uses material that already exists, like newspaper articles and interview transcripts. It uses the real words of real people to create a story and to make a play. So I'll read that again. Documentary theater uses pre-existing material as the source for the creation of a script. We've already been exposed to some examples of documentary theater. The Vagina Monologues is essentially a work of documentary theater. The Laramie Project is a work of documentary theater. Documentary theater is when the real words of real people are turned into a play. In this course reader, you will look at two examples of documentary theater. Both Twilight Los Angeles 1992 and 8, those are the two plays, use the technique of what's called verbatim theater. And verbatim means literally word for word the actual words of people put directly on stage without any editing of their words. So verbatim theater is the using of the exact words of actual people as the source of the script. Twilight, which is created by Anna Deavere Smith, was created through an interview process that Smith herself conducted with hundreds of people who were in some way related to and or impacted by the riots in Los Angeles in 1992. 8, which was created by Dustin Lance Black, uses court transcripts from the court case against Proposition 8 in California. I'm going to pause here and just give you a brief bit of background knowledge on these two plays. So Twilight was premiered in 1993 and actually premiered at the very same theater that Angels in America premiered at, the Mark Taper Forum in Los Angeles. A woman named Anna Deavere Smith interviewed about 200 people about the riots that took place in 1992 after the 4 police who beat Rodney King and were caught on video were all acquitted and let off without being sentenced. What followed was some of the worst civil unrest that America has ever seen, rioting in the streets, violence and looting, and injuries and death and damages. And Anna Deavere Smith did a play about the riots in which she interviewed about 200 people, picked out the most interesting characters, transcribed what they said, and she actually then went on to play every single character in Twilight herself as a one-woman show. So she played men and women, Asians, blacks, Latinos, whites, and this became one of the most well-known examples of verbatim theater in the history of theater. And again, this was in the early 1990s, so about 20 years ago. Much more recently, in the past few years, Proposition 8 passed in California. As a matter of fact, Proposition 8 passed in the very same election in which Barack Obama was first elected president. So this was November of 2008. And what Proposition 8 did was it made it illegal for same-sex couples to be married in California. It won by a margin of 52 to 48. And because it won, same-sex couples were no longer allowed to be married. Now, a court case developed over Proposition 8 in which 2 gay couples challenged the legality of this proposition and argued that it should indeed be legal for gays to marry in California. When that court case was in its final moments and closing arguments, it was not broadcast live in California or elsewhere in the nation. So the man named Dustin Lance Black, who is most well known for writing the screenplay to the movie Milk, he's a gay activist and a filmmaker and a writer. He created a play out of the transcripts of the trial. And he called the play 8, after Proposition 8. His play was first performed by an all-star cast in Los Angeles. George Clooney and Brad Pitt and a bunch of very, very famous actors did a reading of this play. And it's now being done all over the country. And it is a part of Dustin Lance Black's activism that he wants this play and this trial to be performed and to be known about all around the country. And as a matter of fact, as we move forward here in 2013, that original trial, which actually struck down Proposition 8, then went on to a district court where Proposition 8 was once again struck down, and it's actually on its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. So the U.S. Supreme Court is actually going to be hearing the very same case that is documented in the play 8. The U.S. Supreme Court is going to be hearing that very same case shortly. So as to the contents of your course reader, here's what we've got. We've got a brief Wikipedia article, and the Wikipedia article just basically outlines what documentary theater is. That's G1, and that's about 2.5 pages long. G2 is a bio of Anna Deavere Smith, and that is the woman who did the interviews for, wrote, and performed Twilight Los Angeles, 1992. G3, you'll first see the front and back cover of the book version of Twilight Los Angeles, 1992. And then G3-1, you've got the intro, in which Anna Deavere Smith gives the background about her play. G3-2 is the prologue, which is the very first monologue that was performed. And G3-3 is an excerpt from The Territory, which is the first section of the play. Essentially, G3-2 and G3-3 together are about the first 10 minutes of Twilight Los Angeles 1992. So just as we read only the very first vagina monologue, here you're going to be reading just about the first 10 minutes of Twilight Los Angeles 1992. The prologue is the first monologue, and then the excerpt that you're reading is the subsequent few monologues. The course reader, really, you could say, is broken into 3 parts, I think would be the best way to understand it. G1 really stands alone as just an introduction to documentary theater, and then G2 and G3 are specifically about Twilight Los Angeles 1992, which is one example of documentary theater. G4 through G7 are all about 8, which is the other example of documentary theater we're looking at. So you've got kind of an intro to the idea of documentary theater. Then you've got all the stuff on Twilight, which is one of the 2 plays we're going to be looking at, which is an example of documentary theater. And then you've got the stuff on 8, which is the other play that we're looking at as an example of documentary theater. So G4 is just a brief bio and intro of Dustin Lance Black, who is the man behind the play 8. G5 is an update from the AFER website. AFER is an organization that I believe Dustin Lance Black actually co-founded, if I'm not mistaken. And AFER stands for the American Foundation for Equal Rights, and it is the organization that is leading the federal case against Proposition 8 in California. G5 is just an update printed off of the website sort of right around that time when AFER found out that their constitutional challenge to Proposition 8 is actually indeed going to be heard before the Supreme Court. You can actually go to afer.org and get up-to-the-minute information about the pending Supreme Court case, which is actually going to be heard sometime between now and the end of this school year. G6 is about the original reading. There was a one-night-only performance in Los Angeles with an all-star cast, and G6 is just sort of an article about that original reading and gives you some background information about the play and the story behind the play and what people were trying to accomplish with this play. And G7 is actually a program from a recent production at the Goodman Theater. So I actually went to see a reading of 8 in January of this year. So it was actually right around the time we were starting Unit 3. I went to see a production of 8, and I just Xeroxed the program for you so you could see it. And the program includes some information about, what individuals can do in this fight. It includes setting the scene notes about Proposition 8, and it includes what's titled an epilogue, which kind of gives an up-to-the-minute update on the fight against Proposition 8. Interestingly enough, if you look under the cast list at the post-show panelists, after I saw this play, I actually got to listen to a talk back where some various people who were involved in this fight talked and answered questions from the audience for about 20 minutes. And one of the panelists, Chris Perry, is actually one of the two women in the lesbian couple who is leading this fight and who is one of the plaintiffs in the case. So she's actually one of the women whose case is going to be argued in front of the Supreme Court. And she was there that night when I saw this play a few months ago, and she talked about her experience. So how should you read this course reader? First of all, it's important, like I said, that you understand that it is broken into 3 parts and treat them separately, and feel free to take breaks in between. In G1, just make sure that you have a basic understanding of what is documentary theater, and make sure you're clear on some of the ideas about what is documentary theater. In G2, you're just pulling out stuff from her bio. That's pretty straightforward. And in G3, in the intro for Twilight, there are multiple important points that she makes, so you want to be pulling out topic sentences and supporting details. Topic sentence, TS, and supporting details, SD. That's in the intro specifically. And then in the first, 10-15 pages of the play itself that you're reading, just want you to get a sense of, the content of the play. G4, G5, G6, G7, I want you to make sure that you're, take the time to understand the timeline of the Proposition 8 fight. You may want to do a little extra research of your own to make sure you're clear on this, and also look closely at G6 for help on this. And I also want you to get a clear sense, as best you can, of the play itself. Get a sense of the play. And there will be more info on how to do that on the next slide. So optional pages and miscellaneous notes. There really aren't any optional pages in this course reader. It is a bit longer than the last few that we've had, so make sure that you don't save it until the last minute. If you want to check out on YouTube to get a deeper understanding, the 2 things to search for Twilight would be searching Anna Devere Smith. You can actually see her performing some of the monologues from Twilight. And if you search LA riots, Los Angeles riots, you can see some footage from the time and get a sense of what those riots were like and the racial tensions underlining those riots. As far as the second half of the course reader, if you actually go to YouTube and you type in 8, a play about the fight for marriage equality, you can actually see a film of the entire... it's about 90 minutes, and it's the full-length play being done by that all-star cast, Brad Pitt and George Clooney, and all of those big-time actors. So you can actually watch the entire play at home. It's about an hour and a half long. You can also, this isn't actually YouTube, but you can also go, if you'd like to, you can check out AFER.org, like I mentioned earlier, and get a sense of where is 8 being performed now, and where is the court case that it's about, where is it headed, and any updates on the Supreme Court case that is pending. So, I'm going to go ahead and close out this lecture. Please feel free to email me if you've got any questions.